The community center on Kepler 9 station smelled like recycled air, and the strange mix of alien scents that Sora had grown used to over the past year. She sat cross-legged on the soft floor mat, surrounded by a circle of younglings from 6 different species. Her voice was gentle as she taught them a simple Earth song about stars. Rask, the young Velthron, struggled with the soft melody. His species was built for war chants and battle cries, not lullabies. His gray skin had darker patterns that marked him as highborn, and his forearms moved awkwardly as he tried to clap along with the rhythm. But he tried anyway, his large eyes focused on Sora with complete trust. Next to him, Pip fluttered her small wings nervously. The Kurnix child was barely the size of Sora's forearm, with bright blue feathers and a voice that chirped more than spoke. She always sat close to Sora during lessons, finding comfort in the human's warmth. Greel lounged at the edge of the circle, pretending not to care. The Torvash juvenile had scales that shifted from green to brown depending on his mood, and right now they showed the conflicted pattern of someone trying to look tough while actually enjoying himself. His tail swayed slightly to the music. Nick sat perfectly still, processing everything. The young synthoid's face could show emotions, but they always seemed a half-second delayed, as if he was learning what to feel by watching others. His silver eyes tracked Sora's every movement, storing the data of kindness. "You are all doing well," Sora said, smiling at each of them. "The song does not need to be perfect. It just needs to be yours." This was what she did 3 times a week. Parents stationed on Kepler 9 would drop their younglings at the community center, grateful for a few hours of peace. Most species kept their young separate, teaching them to be proud and distinct. But Sora's sessions were different. Here, cubs from different worlds played together, learned together, and discovered that being different did not mean being enemies. The door hissed open with more force than necessary. Commander Vect entered with 6 armed guards behind him. The Velthron leader was massive, even for his species. His armor was decorated with marks of battles won and enemies defeated. His presence filled the room like a cold wind, and all the younglings immediately fell silent. Sora stood slowly, placing herself between Vect and the children. "Commander, we are in the middle of a lesson. If you need to speak with me, I can meet you after—" "No." Vect's voice was like grinding stone. "This ends now." His eyes found Rask, and the young Velthron cub shrank back. "Nephew, come here." Rask looked at Sora, then at his uncle. Fear made his scales darken. "Uncle, I know what you were doing." Vect's forearms crossed over his chest. "I know you have been coming here for weeks, learning human weakness, singing soft songs instead of training for war. You dishonor our family." Sora stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Commander Vect, these children are learning cultural exchange. It is approved by the station administration. There is no dishonor in— You dare speak to me of honor?" Vect's eyes locked onto Sora. "You who fills young minds with poison? Teaching them that violence is wrong? That warriors should feel guilt? That protecting the weak matters more than being strong?" "Yes," Sora said simply. "I teach them that strength without compassion is just cruelty." The other younglings huddled together. Pip was shaking. Greel's scales had gone solid dark green, the color of fear. Nyx's face showed confusion, unable to understand why kindness was being called poison. Vect moved closer to Sora. Even standing, she barely reached his chest. "You are infecting the youth of allied species with human sentiment, making them soft. The galaxy is not soft, human. The galaxy is hard and cold and full of danger. Your kind has been here for barely 20 cycles, and you think you can reshape how we raise our young?" "I think," Sora said quietly, "that children deserve to learn there are options beyond violence." "Options." Vect laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Our species has survived for thousands of cycles by being strong, by teaching our cubs to fight, to conquer, to never show weakness. And you undo this teaching with songs and games?" He pulled out a communication device. "I am calling an emergency council session. I am formally accusing you, Han Sora of Earth, of cultural corruption and interference with the natural development of allied species youth. This is a crime against the Galactic Council." Sora's heart began to race, but she kept her face calm. The younglings needed to see her unafraid. "Those are serious accusations. They are true accusations." Vect turned to his guards. "Take the younglings back to their parents. This human's influence over them ends today. As the guards moved forward, Rask suddenly spoke up. "Uncle, please. Teacher Sora has not hurt us. She has only been kind." Kind. Vect said the word like it tasted bad. Kindness is what prey shows to predators before being eaten. "I am taking you home, Rask. Your time as a cub playing human games is over. Tomorrow you begin real training." The guards gathered the younglings. Pip cried softly. Greel hissed in frustration but was too small to resist. Nix looked at Sora with his silver eyes and said, "This seems incorrect." "Sometimes," Sora told him gently, "the right thing and the accepted thing are different." When the younglings were gone, Vect looked down at Sora. "The council meets in 1 hour. You will answer for what you have done." The council chamber was a vast circular room with seats rising in tiers around a central speaking floor. Representatives from 40 species attended, their forms ranging from the humanoid to the utterly alien. Some breathed oxygen like Sora. Others sat in specialized environmental suits filled with methane or liquid ammonia. Sora stood in the center, alone. G. Taman and other human representatives sat in Earth's designated section, unable to help her. This was her accusation to face. Council Arbiter Thane presided over the session. The ancient being was older than most civilizations, his species having achieved wisdom through millennia of observation. His voice echoed through translation devices in 40 languages at once. "Commander Vect of the Veltron Empire brings accusations against Han Sora of Earth. Let the charges be heard." Vect stepped forward. "This human has operated a youth education program that teaches alien younglings to question their cultural values. She spreads human ideologies of pacifism and emotional weakness. She has corrupted my own nephew, teaching him that warriors should doubt themselves before acting. This is cultural warfare disguised as education." Murmurs rippled through the council. Some species nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable. Thane turned to Sora. "How do you answer?" "I teach younglings from different species to understand each other," Sora said. Her voice carried clearly in the silent chamber. "I teach them that they have choices in how they respond to conflict. I teach them that being strong means protecting others, not just dominating them. If that is a crime, then I am guilty." "You admit to interference?" a representative from a reptilian species asked. "I admit to teaching children to think for themselves." Vex slammed one of his 4 fists on the railing. "Exactly. She admits it. She turns younglings against their own cultures." Thane raised a hand for silence. "This is a serious matter. If proven, it could result in Earth's diplomatic status being revoked." G. Taman stood up in the human section. "Arbiter, surely teaching cultural exchange cannot be—" "I am not finished," Thane interrupted. "Commander Vect, you have made your accusation. Under Veltron law, what is your demand?" Vect's smile was cold. "I invoke the right of trial by combat. Let this human prove her ideology has strength. Let her face me in the arena, and we will see if soft words and kind teachings can stand against a warrior's blade." The council chamber erupted in noise. Some species shouted approval. Others protested. Humans looked at each other in horror. Sora felt ice in her stomach. Trial by combat was an ancient law, one that had been absorbed into Galactic Council protocol from older, more violent times. It was rarely used, but it was legal. Thane consulted his records, his old eyes scanning through centuries of law. Finally, he looked up. "The right exists. It is valid. Han Sora, you have 48 hours to prepare, or you may concede the accusation and accept punishment." "What punishment?" Sora asked. "Earth's educational programs would be banned throughout council space. Your species would be marked as culturally aggressive. It would damage your reputation for generations." Sora looked up at G. Taman. Her mentor's face was stricken. He was already shaking his head. "Do not do this," his expression said. "We will find another way." But Sora knew there was no other way. If she backed down, humanity would be seen as weak. Every human colony, every human child in council space would suffer for it. And the younglings she had taught, Rask, Pip, Greel, Nix, and all the others would learn that kindness lost to cruelty. "I accept the challenge," Sora said. The chamber went silent. Vect's laugh broke the quiet. "Excellent. In 2 days, human, I will show the galaxy what happens to those who spread weakness. The arena awaits." As the council session ended and species representatives filed out, Sora stood alone in the center of the chamber. She had no combat training beyond basic self-defense. She had no chance of winning, but sometimes she thought the point was not winning, Sometimes the point was simply refusing to back down. That night, Sora went to the observation deck where younglings from the station were housed in species-appropriate quarters. The training facility on Kepler-9 was empty at dawn. Yoon Dae-hyun stood in the center of the practice mat, watching Sora attempt a defensive stance. His weathered face showed concern that he tried to hide. "Again," he said, "keep your weight centered. If Vec charges, you need to move, not resist." Sora tried the movement. Her muscles ached from 2 hours of practice. Sweat dripped down her face. "Dae-hyun, we both know this is useless. 48 hours cannot turn me into a warrior." "No," the security chief agreed, "but it might keep you alive for a few more minutes." He demonstrated a dodge, his movements efficient despite his age. 40 years of military service had made his body remember what his mind had to teach. Vect will try to end it quickly. He wants to make a show of human weakness. If you can last, if you can make him work for it, you take away some of his victory. Sora copied the movement, stumbling slightly, and then he kills me anyway. Probably. Dae-hyun's honesty was harsh but necessary. But you knew that when you accepted? They trained in silence for another hour. Dodging, falling, rolling, getting back up. Basic survival movements that might buy seconds of life. It was not much, but it was something. Ji Taemin arrived as the session ended. The older diplomat looked like he had not slept. "The council is in chaos. Half want to stop this, half want to see it through. Arbiter Thane is following the letter of the law, but even he seems uncomfortable. Can anything be done?" Sora asked, knowing the answer. "Only if you withdraw your acceptance." Ji Taemin's eyes were pleading. "Sora, there is no shame in surviving. We can find other ways to build humanity's reputation, can we?" Sora sat on the mat, catching her breath. "If I back down, every species in council space sees humans as cowards who make bold claims but run from consequences. Every human teacher, every human colony, every human child will be seen as weak. Is that the legacy we want?" Ji Taemin sat beside her. "I taught you diplomacy. I did not teach you martyrdom. You taught me that sometimes words are not enough." Sora looked at her mentor. "You told me once that humans survived on Earth because we protected our young above everything else. Even at cost to ourselves. That is what I am doing now. Those younglings in your program are not human. Does that matter?" Ji Taemin had no answer to that. News of the trial spread through the station like fire through oxygen. By midday, everyone knew. The human teacher was going to fight the Velthron commander. It would not be a fight, of course. It would be an execution with ceremony. In the alien quarters, younglings huddled together and whispered. Their parents tried to keep them away from the news feeds, but children always found ways to learn what adults tried to hide. Rask sat in his family's quarters, his scales dark with shame. His father, Vect's brother, stood by the window looking out at the stars. "This is my fault," Rask said quietly. "Uncle is doing this because of me." "No." His father's voice was heavy. "Your uncle is doing this because he believes the old ways are the only ways. He sees change as weakness. Teacher Sora is not weak. I know." His father turned to look at his son. "But proving that to your uncle may cost her everything." In another quarter, Pip clung to her mother's wing. The small Quernix trembled constantly, her feathers dulled by stress. "Can we help her? Can we tell them she is good?" "The trial has been called," her mother said gently. "Once called, it cannot be stopped." "I am sorry, little one." Griel's family did not discuss it at all. The Torvesh believed in strength, and Sora's upcoming defeat proved she lacked it. But Griel noticed his parents did not mock her. They were simply silent, which for his species meant something close to respect. Nix processed the information alone in his small assigned space. The young synthoid ran probability calculations over and over. Every scenario ended the same way. Teacher Sora would die. The probability was 99.7%. The remaining 0.3% existed only because probability could never quite reach certainty. He did not understand why this calculation made his emotional subroutines activate feelings labeled as sadness and injustice. But they did. As evening approached, the four younglings found themselves drawn to the same place without planning it. The maintenance corridor near the community center was quiet, and they could slip away from parental observation. "We have to do something," Rask said. His forearms gestured in frustration. "Teacher Sora is going to die because she protected us. What can we do?" Pip's small voice chirped. We are just cubs. They will not listen to us. They should. Greel's tail lashed angrily. Teacher Sora listens to us. Why do adults think they are the only ones who matter? Nix tilted his head. I have been studying the arena layout. There are maintenance access points throughout the structure. They are meant for automated cleaning systems. The others looked at him. What are you saying? Rask asked. I am saying, Nix replied slowly, that beings of our size could access areas that adults cannot. The arena rules state no outside interference is permitted. But what if interference came from inside? That is crazy, Pip whispered. But her eyes showed hope, not rejection. It is against every rule, Greel added. But his scales had shifted to excited orange. Rask's scales brightened for the first time in days. Teacher Sora taught us that sometimes rules are wrong, that sometimes you have to stand for what is right even if adults say you should not. If we are caught, Nix calculated, the punishment would be severe. For me, possibly deactivation. For the rest of you, I am uncertain. They sat in silence, considering the risk. I am going, Rask said finally. Uncle needs to see that Teacher Sora's lessons were not weakness. They were strength. I will show him. We go together, Pip said, surprising everyone with the firmness in her tiny voice. Teacher Sora never left any of us alone. We do not leave her alone. Agreed, Greel said. Agreed, Nix added. They began to plan. Sora spent the evening writing messages, one for each youngling she had taught. She tried to explain why she had accepted the challenge, what she hoped they would learn from it, and how much teaching them had meant to her. For Rask, being strong does not mean never being afraid. It means doing what is right even when you are terrified. Your uncle is wrong about strength. You already know this in your hearts. Trust that knowledge. For Pip, your gentleness is not weakness. The galaxy needs gentle voices that speak truth. Never let anyone convince you that kindness is cowardice. For Greel, I saw through your tough act from the first day. You pretend not to care because you are afraid of being hurt. But caring, truly caring, takes more courage than fighting. You have that courage. For Nix, you asked me once if artificial beings can feel real emotions. Yes. What you feel is real. How you choose to act on those feelings will define you more than any programming. She sealed the messages in individual data chips, arranging for them to be delivered if, when, she did not return. Kang Mirai visited her quarters that night. The young administrator brought food that Sora did not eat and company that she appreciated. I went through every regulation, Mirai said, looking for loopholes, exceptions, anything that could stop this. The best I found was a clause about environmental factors being permitted during combat. It means the arena itself can be part of the fight, but I do not see how that helps you. It does not, Sora said gently, but thank you for trying. This is wrong. Mirai's frustration boiled over. We came to the stars thinking we would find civilization. Instead, we find cultures that solve disputes by having people beat each other to death in an arena. What is civilized about that? Every culture has violence in its past, Sora said. Earth included. Perhaps we are meant to show them a different path. By dying, by refusing to compromise on what we believe even when threatened. Mirai left eventually, her frustration unresolved. Sora sat alone in her quarters, looking at old pictures from Earth. Her classroom from 10 years ago, children's faces, human faces, smiling at the camera. She wondered what they would think of their old teacher now. Probably that she was being foolish. Probably that she should have stayed safe. But Sora had never been good at staying safe when children needed her. The night cycle approached. In 40 hours, the arena would open. Thousands would watch. Most expected a quick, brutal conclusion. A demonstration of human weakness. Sora meditated, trying to find peace in the approaching end. She thought about all the choices that had led here. Volunteering for Galactic service. Starting the cultural program. Teaching younglings from species she had never heard of before leaving Earth. Each choice had seemed small at the time. Now those small choices had led to one large consequence. She did not regret them. In the maintenance corridors beneath the station, 4 small figures studied arena schematics on a borrowed datapad. They moved quietly, avoiding security sensors, using access codes that Nix had obtained through methods he refused to explain. Tomorrow, Rask said, when the trial begins, we wait for the right moment. What is the right moment? Pip asked nervously. When Teacher Sora needs us most, Greel answered. Nix's silver eyes glowed in the darkness. My calculations show a 12% chance of success. The risk is extremely high. Teacher Sora faces 100% chance of death, Rask pointed out. We are improving her odds. They separated before dawn, each returning to their quarters before parents noticed absence. They said nothing to each other about fear, but they all felt it. They were cubs. The grand arena of Kepler 9 was designed to host combat from a dozen different species, each with different needs and fighting styles. The floor was made of reinforced composite that could withstand extreme temperatures and crushing impacts. Multiple levels rose from the ground, creating platforms and obstacles. Weapons from various cultures hung on racks along the walls. Environmental controls could adjust gravity, atmosphere, and temperature in different zones. It was built for war, for spectacle, for death. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species filled the viewing sections. Some came to see justice delivered as they understood it. Others came simply because violence drew crowds, no matter the species. The atmosphere was tense with anticipation. In the preparation chambers beneath the arena, Sora pulled on the basic protective armor that regulations required. It was light plating across vital areas, designed more to make fights last longer than to actually protect. Her hands shook slightly as she fastened the clasps. Yoon Dae-hyun stood nearby, his face carefully neutral. Remember what we practiced. Dodge, do not block. Use the terrain. Make him chase you. Every second you survive is a second he does not get to claim easy victory. I remember, Sora said. Her voice was steadier than she felt. Sora. Dae-hyun's formal tone dropped. You do not have to do this. Even now you can. I do. She turned to face him. Thank you for training me. Thank you for trying. But we both know how this ends. Then why? Because those younglings are watching. Because every human in council space is watching. Because I need them all to see that some things matter more than survival. Dae-hyun said nothing. There was nothing left to say. In the opposite preparation chamber, Vect dressed in full Velthron battle armor. The plates were scarred from actual combat, not the ceremonial decoration that some warriors wore. His forearms checked weapons with practiced efficiency. A blade for each hand, traditional weapons of his people. His brother entered the chamber. This is not necessary, Vect. The human is already defeated. You have made your point, have I? Vect's voice was hard. Our nephew sits in our quarters still believing the soft words of a human teacher. Until I demonstrate the weakness of her philosophy in blood and broken bone, that poison will remain in his mind. He is just a cub. He is a warrior of the Velthron Empire, Vect corrected, and he will learn today what that truly means. Above them, in the viewing stands, Ji-taemin sat with other human representatives. His hands gripped the railing hard enough to hurt. Around them, aliens of every description watched the arena floor with various expressions: anticipation, disapproval, curiosity, bloodlust. Kang Mirai sat beside him. I still do not understand why Arbiter Thane allowed this. Because the law is the law, Ji-taemin said bitterly, and sometimes the law is a weapon pointed at the innocent. In a section reserved for younglings under parental supervision, Rask sat between his parents. His scales were dark with distress. Around him, other cubs from Sora's classes watched with wide eyes. They had been brought to witness what their parents called a lesson. Pip was there, clutching her mother's wing. Greel sat stone still, his scales locked in neutral gray. Nix's artificial face was unreadable, but his silver eyes tracked everything. None of the adults noticed when the four younglings exchanged glances. None saw the small nods. None realized that the cubs were not just watching. They were waiting. Council Arbiter Thane's voice echoed through the arena, translated into every language simultaneously. We gather to witness trial by combat. Commander Vect of the Velthron Empire brings accusation against Han Sora of Earth. The trial will proceed under ancient law. Combat continues until surrender, incapacitation, or death. No outside interference is permitted under penalty of execution. The crowd grew silent. Let the accused enter. A gate opened on one side of the arena. Sora walked out into the space, and the noise hit her like a physical force. Thousands of beings watching, judging, waiting. She moved to the center of the arena floor, trying to control her breathing. The armor felt heavy. Her legs wanted to shake. She forced them still. Let the accuser enter. The opposite gate opened, and Vect emerged. Where Sora had walked, he strode. Where she had seemed small, he dominated the space. His armor caught the light. His four-bladed weapons gleamed. He looked exactly like what he was, a warrior who had killed many times before. They stood opposite each other, separated by 50 meters of arena floor. "Begin," Thane commanded. Vect did not rush. He walked forward slowly, letting the crowd see his confidence, letting Sora see her death approaching step by step. "You are brave, human," he called out. His voice carried across the arena. "Foolish but brave. I respect that you did not run." Sora said nothing. She moved sideways, trying to keep distance between them. "Your kind is young in the galaxy," Vect continued. "You do not yet understand that survival requires strength. Mercy is a luxury for species that have already conquered their enemies. You have conquered nothing. You have no right to teach others your soft philosophy." He moved faster. Sora backed toward one of the raised platforms, using it to create barriers between them. "I will make this educational," Vect said. "I will show these younglings what happens to those who choose weakness." Then he charged. Sora ran. There was no shame in it, no pretense of standing firm. She sprinted for the platform, scrambling up the incline. Vect followed, his longer legs covering distance faster. She reached the top and kept moving, jumping across to another platform. Her landing was clumsy but successful. Below, Vect leaped the same gap with ease. The crowd roared, some with excitement, some with derision. The human was running like prey. Sora's mind raced as fast as her legs. Daehyun's training came back. Do not let him pin you. Use the terrain. Make him work. She grabbed a weapon from a wall rack as she passed. A long staff, something she might actually use to keep distance. Vect laughed at the sight. "You think a stick will save you?" He closed the distance on an upper platform. His first blade swept at her chest. Sora dropped flat, feeling the wind of its passage above her. She rolled aside as his second blade struck where she had been. The crowd's noise grew louder. Sora swung the staff desperately. Vect caught it with one hand and yanked. She let go rather than be pulled to him, scrambling backward. "Better than I expected," Vect admitted, but still not enough. His third blade cut across, catching her armor. The plating cracked but held. The impact sent Sora tumbling across the platform. She hit the edge and barely caught herself from falling. Pain shot through her ribs. The armor had stopped the blade from cutting deep, but the force alone had damaged something inside. She forced herself up, gasping. Blood tasted like copper in her mouth. "Do you see?" Vect called out to the watching crowd, to the younglings. "This is what human teaching leads to. Pain, defeat, death." He advanced again. Sora had nowhere left to run on this platform. She looked down at the arena floor 3 meters below. Jumping would hurt, but staying was worse. She jumped. The landing sent fire through her injured ribs. She rolled to distribute impact, came up running. Vect followed, dropping from the platform with perfect form. Around the arena, the 4 younglings shifted in their seats. In the noise and chaos, no one noticed as they slipped away from their parents. The adults were too focused on the fight, on the humans suffering, on what they believed was inevitable conclusion. The younglings moved through access corridors that maintenance crews used. Nyx led, his memory of the schematics perfect. Pip flew short distances when the corridors allowed it. Greel's small size let him squeeze through tight spaces. Rask used his forearms to climb over obstacles. They were heading for the arena floor. On that floor, Sora was failing. Her breathing came in painful gasps. Her ribs were definitely broken. Blood ran from a cut above her eye where Vect's armor had struck during a near miss. Vect was barely winded. He herded her toward the arena's center, away from cover, away from escape. "Surrender," he said. "I will make it quick." "No." Sora's voice was weak but clear. "Then I will make it slow." His 4 blades moved in patterns too fast to follow. Sora tried to dodge, but pain made her slow. A blade cut across her arm. Another scraped her leg. Shallow cuts meant to weaken, to make the crowd see her bleed. She fell to her knees. The crowd noise reached a peak. This was it. The moment they had come to see. Human weakness exposed. Human philosophy proven wrong. Human blood on the arena floor. Vect raised his primary blade high, preparing for the killing strike. "Your kind does not belong among warriors," he said, loud enough for all to hear. "This is what happens to movement from the maintenance tunnels." 4 small figures emerged onto the arena floor. A young Veltran with dark scales, a tiny Quernix with blue feathers, a Torvash juvenile with determined eyes, a synthoid with silver eyes that reflected the arena lights. They ran toward the center, toward Sora, toward Vect. The arena fell absolutely silent. Rask reached Sora first. He positioned himself between his uncle and the fallen human, his young body trembling but his forearms spread in protection. Pip landed on Sora's shoulder. Wings spread to make herself seem larger. Greel flanked the other side, scales shifting to aggressive orange. Nick stood at the front, his small synthetic frame facing the massive warrior. "No," Rask said. His voice cracked with youth and fear but carried in the silence. "You will not harm our teacher." The silence in the grand arena felt heavier than stone. Thousands of beings held their breath as they watched four younglings stand between a warrior and his intended kill. The moment stretched, suspended between violence and something unprecedented. Council Arbiter Thane's voice finally broke the silence. "Stop, all combatants freeze." Vect did not move. His blades remained lowered but ready. His eyes locked on his nephew's face, reading determination where there should have been proper fear. Armed guards surrounded the arena's edges, but none entered. The ancient law was clear. Once a trial began, no outside force could interfere without dishonoring the entire proceeding. But what was happening now had no precedent. Thane descended from his council seat, moving slowly across the viewing platforms. His species did not hurry. They considered, deliberated, remembered. As he moved, his attendants brought forward massive data archives containing thousands of years of legal history. "The trial is halted pending review," Thane announced. No one moves. No one acts. All remain in position. In the stands, parents of the younglings were in chaos. Rask's father tried to climb over the barrier toward the arena floor. Guards held him back. Pip's mother shrieked in distress. Other species representatives shouted demands and protests. G-Taman gripped the railing, his face showing wonder and terror in equal measure. "What have they done?" "They have changed everything," Kang Mirai whispered. "Or gotten themselves killed." On the arena floor, Sora tried to stand. Her broken ribs sent fire through her chest, but she forced herself up. "Children," she said through gritted teeth. "You should not be here. This is not your fight." "Yes, it is," Greel said. His scales had locked into determined orange and would not shift. "You fought for us. Now we fight for you." "You taught us to stand up for what is right," Pip added in her small, chirping voice. "You are right. He is wrong." Nyx's silver eyes met Sora's. "My probability calculations showed 99.7% chance of your death. The remaining 0.3% required a variable I could not predict. I believe we are that variable." Vect finally spoke. His voice was low, dangerous. "Rask, step aside. This is not your concern." "It is my concern," Rask replied. His forearms remained spread in protection, though they shook with fear. "You say Teacher Sora made me weak, but I am standing here facing you despite being terrified. That is not weakness. That is foolishness. You taught me that warriors protect," Rask continued. His voice grew stronger. "But you never said protect from what?" "Teacher Sora taught me that warriors should protect the innocent. The kind. Those who cannot protect themselves. She is more warrior than you, Uncle. She was willing to die for us." Vec's expression darkened. "By entering this trial, you four have broken sacred law. The penalty is death. Then you will have to kill us first," Greel said simply. "Before you can reach Teacher Sora, you have to go through us." The small Torvash's words echoed across the silent arena. Thane's assistants worked frantically through the legal archives. Pages of ancient law scrolled across holographic displays. Representatives from dozens of species crowded close, reading, arguing, searching for precedent. Finally, Thane raised his hand. The arena fell silent again. "I have found something," the ancient arbiter said, "from the oldest Velthran legal codes before your empire spread to the stars. A law so old that most have forgotten it existed." He gestured, and the text appeared in the air above the arena, translated into every known language. "The Law of Guardian's Right," Thane read. "If younglings willingly enter a challenge trial to defend another, they invoke ancient protection. They declare that the accused is their guardian, their protector. Under this law, to harm the younglings or their declared guardian is to commit the highest dishonor, the murder of cubs and their defender." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Velthran representatives checked their own historical records. Some looked shocked. Others showed recognition. Vec's face went rigid. That law has not been invoked in 1,000 cycles, because it was created for a different time, Thane continued. When your people valued those who protected younglings above all else, before your culture shifted to prize only warrior strength. But the law still exists. It is still valid, and it has been invoked whether intentionally or not. He turned to face Vect directly. Commander, you now face a choice. You may strike down these younglings and the human they protect, but in doing so you will forever mark yourself as one who kills cubs. In all Velthron history and all Velthron culture, is there any dishonor greater? Vect's forehands tightened on his weapons. Rage warred with something else in his expression. They are not my cubs. They are not even my species except for my nephew. They have claimed Guardian's right, Thane said. Species does not matter under that ancient law. What matters is that younglings have declared this human protects them. They have put their lives between her and your blades. This is manipulation, Vex snarled. The human trained them to do this. Did she? Thane looked at Sora. Did you teach them to enter a combat trial? Sora, barely standing, shook her head. I taught them to think for themselves, to choose kindness over cruelty. I never asked them to do this, we chose, Rask said firmly. Teacher Sora taught us we always have choices. We chose to stand with her. Pip flew up slightly, her small voice carrying. She was the only adult who never made me feel small, who never treated my fear as if it was shameful. She protected us with kindness. We protect her with presence. My people value strength, Greel added. Teacher Sora showed me that protecting others is the greatest strength. She was willing to die protecting our right to learn. We are willing to die protecting her right to live. Nix tilted his head. I am artificial. I was not certain I could make choices that mattered. But I choose to stand here. That choice makes me more than programming. Teacher Sora taught me that. In the viewing stands, other younglings began to stir. The cubs who had attended Sora's classes, who had learned her lessons, who had been told to stay silent while their teacher was killed. One by one, they began to call out. A young reptilian called out in its hissing language. A mammalian cub howled. An aquatic youngling in a water suit activated its translator and spoke. Small voices, but growing in number. Teacher Sora taught me too. She was kind to me. She never hurt anyone. She protected us. The voices multiplied. Dozens of younglings from dozens of species, all speaking the same truth in different languages. Their parents tried to quiet them. But children who have found their voice do not become silent easily. Vect looked around the arena, seeing his perfect demonstration falling apart. He had meant to prove human weakness. Instead, he was surrounded by the evidence of human influence. Younglings from across the galaxy, all defending the teacher who had shown them gentleness. This is corruption, he said, but his voice lacked certainty. She has infected them all with her soft philosophy. Or, Thane said quietly, she has taught them something your culture forgot. That protection is the highest duty. That caring for the young matters more than warrior pride. That strength without compassion is just violence. He gestured to the 4 cubs standing with Sora. Look at them, Commander. Your nephew faces you, terrified but unmoving. The Quernix child, whose species you call cowardly, stands firm. The Torvash juvenile, the Synthoid youth, all of them have chosen possible death over abandoning their teacher. Is that weakness? Or is that the purest form of courage? Vect stood frozen, his 4 blades still held ready but no longer certain of their purpose. Sora spoke, her voice pained but clear. Commander, you wanted to prove that human teaching was wrong, that kindness makes beings weak. But look at what these younglings have done. They entered a combat trial knowing they could die. They faced you, a trained warrior, with nothing but their belief that protecting others matters. If that is the result of my teaching, then I accept it. Even if it ends here, you accept death? Vect asked. I accept the consequences of teaching children that love is stronger than fear, that protecting others is worth any cost, that standing against cruelty, even when you cannot win, is still the right choice. Sora looked at each of the 4 younglings. I am sorry I taught you so well that you endangered yourselves. But I am also proud beyond words. Rask looked back at her, scales brightening. You taught us to be proud of standing for what is right. We are proud to stand for you. Vect's blades lowered further. The crowd watched, sensing something shifting in the warrior's stance. You speak of pride, Vect said slowly. Of honor. Of duty to younglings. These are Velthron values. Values from our oldest history. Yes, Thane confirmed. The values your people held before endless war became your only measure of worth. Vect looked at his nephew. Really looked at him, perhaps for the first time since the trial began. Saw the fear in Rask's young face, saw the courage that overcame that fear, saw the determination to protect another at cost to himself, saw a warrior in the truest sense. "Uncle," Rask said quietly just between them, "Teacher Sora did not make me weak. She made me strong enough to stand here, strong enough to face you, strong enough to know that killing someone who is kind and protecting is not honorable. It is just killing." Vect's forearms lowered completely. The blades pointed at the ground. "I invoke Guardian's right," Vect said, his voice carrying across the arena. The medical facility on Kepler 9 hummed with the quiet efficiency of advanced technology. Machines monitored Sora's vital signs while synthetic tissue accelerators worked on her broken ribs. The cuts and bruises would heal in days. The memory of pain would take longer, but Sora barely noticed the medical procedures. Her attention was fixed on the 4 chairs arranged around her bed, each occupied by a small figure who refused to leave. Rask sat closest, his scales shifting between worried blue and relieved green. His forearms were folded and he watched the medical displays with intense focus, as if monitoring them himself would make Sora heal faster. Pip had nested on the edge of the bed itself, her small feathered body curled near Sora's hand. Every few minutes she would chirp softly, a sound of comfort rather than distress. Greel occupied a chair by the window, pretending to look at the stars beyond. But his reflection in the glass showed his eyes constantly darting back to check on Sora. Nick sat perfectly still in the corner, processing everything. His silver eyes had not left Sora since they arrived, recording every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of her recovery. "You 4 should rest," Sora said quietly. Her voice was rough from pain medication. "Your parents must be worried." "They know where we are," Rask replied. "Father said we earned the right to stay. My mother tried to take me home," Pip added with a small chirp of pride. "I said no." She was very surprised. Greel's scales flickered with amusement. "My parents said I was foolish and brave. They could not decide if they were angry or proud." "And you, Nix?" Sora asked. The young synthoid tilted his head. "I do not have parents, but station administration said I could remain as long as you wished it." "Do you wish it?" "Always," Sora said, and Nix's face showed something close to a smile. A gentle knock on the door preceded G-Taman's entrance. The diplomat looked older than he had a week ago, as if stress had added years to his features. But his eyes showed relief as he saw Sora awake. "You have visitors," he said. "Many visitors. Representatives from 24 species want to speak with you. The human media wants interviews. 3 universities want to offer you positions studying interspecies cultural development." "Can they wait?" Sora asked. "They have been told they must." G-Taman moved to her bedside. "But there is one visitor I thought you should see sooner rather than later." He stepped aside and Vect entered the room. The Veltron commander seemed too large for the medical space. His armor was gone, replaced by simple clothing, but his presence still dominated. The 4 younglings immediately tensed. Vect raised his 4 hands in a gesture of peace. "I come without weapons, without hostility, with apologies." Silence filled the room. Rask's scales went dark with confusion. His uncle did not apologize, ever. "Commander," Sora began, but Vect shook his head. "Let me speak. I do not expect you will grant me much time." He looked at Rask. "Nephew, what you did in that arena was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever witnessed. I have not yet decided which, but it made me reconsider much that I believed to be true." He turned to Sora. "I accused you of corrupting the young, of teaching weakness. I was wrong. You taught them to think beyond what their cultures told them was acceptable. You taught them that protecting others matters more than appearing strong. These are not lessons of weakness. They are lessons I had forgotten. Your culture values strength," Sora said carefully. "I was not trying to attack that. No, you were trying to expand its definition." Vect's expression was difficult to read. The Velthran Empire was not always as we are now. Our oldest histories speak of protector warriors, those who fought only to shield the young and the vulnerable. Somewhere across the centuries, we forgot that fighting for something is different from fighting to prove dominance. He knelt, bringing his eyes level with the younglings. "Rask, Pip, Greel, Nix, You four reminded the galaxy of something important. You reminded me of something I should never have forgotten. Guardian's right exists because our ancestors believed the highest calling was protecting cubs. Not defeating enemies. Not claiming territory. Protecting younglings. Are you saying Teacher Sora was right? Rask asked cautiously. I am saying that she taught you something that I could not. That perhaps my methods were incomplete. Vect looked at Sora again. The Galactic Council is in chaos. Your actions and the younglings' response have started debates that will last for cycles. Some species are angry that old traditions were challenged. Others are reconsidering how they raise their young. I just wanted to teach them to be kind, Sora said. Kind. Vect tested the word. In my language, we have no direct translation for that concept. The closest we have means something like mercy granted to the defeated. But what you teach is different. You teach kindness given freely without expectation of submission or surrender. Yes, Sora confirmed. This troubles many of my people, but it also troubles me that we lack a word for such a concept. He stood. I withdraw all accusations against you and your people. Furthermore, I will speak to the Veltran High Council. I will tell them what I witnessed. That younglings from multiple species chose possible death to protect a teacher who showed them gentleness. That my own nephew showed warrior courage in defense of another. Perhaps it is time my people remembered what we once valued. Rask stared at his uncle in amazement. You would do that? You shamed me, nephew. But you also made me proud. Those can both be true. Vect moved toward the door, then paused. Teacher Sora, I hope you recover quickly. The galaxy, it seems, needs what you teach more than I realized. He left, his footsteps heavy in the corridor outside. G-Taman let out a breath. Well, that was unexpected. Uncle is full of surprises, Rask said slowly, though usually they involve weapons and shouting. The next days brought a parade of visitors. Council Arbiter Thane came to offer formal recognition of Sora's cultural programs. Species representatives who had previously been silent about her teaching now spoke in support. The human community on Kepler-9 celebrated her as a hero, though Sora insisted she had only done what was necessary. Kang Mirai and Yoon Dahyun visited often, bringing news from across council space. Other stations were requesting human cultural teachers. Species that had never before allowed mixed youngling education programs were reconsidering their policies. You started something, Mirai said during one visit. I do not know where it ends, but it is spreading. I hope it ends with children knowing they have choices, Sora replied. That violence is not the only answer. That different species can understand each other. Modest goals, Daehyun said with rare humor. You nearly died for them. Would do again, Sora answered simply. The four younglings around her bed nodded in agreement. 3 weeks after the trial, Sora was cleared to return to normal activity. Her ribs had healed. The cuts were barely visible scars, and the doctor said she was physically ready to resume teaching. She arrived at the community center to find it transformed. The simple room where she had taught songs and games now had additions. Sections for different gravities, atmospheric controls for species that needed special air, cushions and mats sized for beings of every shape, and it was full. Younglings from a dozen species filled the space, some Sora recognized from before. Others were new, brought by parents who had heard what happened in the arena. Rask, Pip, Greel, and Nyx stood at the front, helping younger cubs find comfortable spots. They had appointed themselves as teaching assistants, and Sora's heart swelled at seeing them take leadership. Welcome, Sora said, her voice carrying to every corner. I am Teacher Sora. I am here to help you learn about cultures different from your own. To help you understand that being different does not mean being wrong. To teach you that you always have choices in how you respond to the world. A small tentacled being raised an appendage. Teacher, is it true you almost died? Yes, Sora answered honestly. I was willing to face danger to protect something I believed was important. Teaching you is important. Helping you learn kindness is important. These things matter more than safety. Are you afraid? Asked a young reptilian. Often, Sora admitted. Fear is natural. But being brave does not mean not being afraid. Being brave means doing what is right even when you are afraid. Rask stepped forward. Teacher Sora practices what she teaches. She stood alone in an arena against a warrior because she refused to stop teaching us. We stood with her because she taught us that protecting others is the strongest thing you can do. Even when it is scary, Pip added. Even when adults say you are too small, Greel said. Even when probability calculations suggest the risk is extremely high, Nix concluded. Sora smiled at them. My best students. They learned the lessons I taught and made them their own. That is what I hope for all of you. Not that you become like me or like humans, but that you take what you learn here and make your own choices about what kind of beings you want to become. The lesson began. Sora taught about human customs, but also asked younglings to share their own cultures. A young avian taught the group a greeting dance from her world. An aquatic cub explained how his people communicated through color changes. A mammalian youngling demonstrated a traditional game that required cooperation instead of competition. Different cultures, different species, different ways of seeing the universe. But in this room they learned together.